Hey, I'm Kendall Cross, NCAA champion for Oklahoma State and Olympic gold medalist in 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. I'm now the head coach at the New York City Regional Training Center and work alongside the Columbia Wrestling Program. Excited to be working with Wrestling Fanatics and BJJ Fanatics with this video. The technique that I'm going to go over today is we're going to be going over inside trips from an under over, from double overs. We're going to go over outside trips or outside steps from body lock, from under over, from double over. And we're also going to go over some whizzer kick-ups, which would be from an overhook or a whizzer, and stepping up and learning how to wrestle a whizzer kick-up. Also some drills for you to finish up with, just it'll help you with your footwork. And I hope you enjoy this tape. So what we're going to do is go over an inside trip, actually two different inside trips, but just the difference in the two would be your tie-ups. And so the first trip that I have, I'll go head on the side that I'm tripping, under over. So I'm under on the head side and over on the near side, and just pulling down. Step and trip. We're here, pull down, and from another angle, I'm here, tripping. And then the second inside trip will be with your head on the opposite side, because you're not always going to have the luxury of being on this side that you trip. Opposite side head. I'm going to be tripping on this side with my right leg. So I pull and trip. Take a step, pull and trip. Lastly, set, pull. In breaking this technique down, what I'm going to do is start with the actual finish of the technique, because I feel that it's probably the most important piece to grasp. And it has a lot to do with your positioning on your opponent's body, okay? One thing that's really important when you trip is that you change levels. You stand up here, you know. What I'm going to do when I go into trip, I'm going to change levels down and hit him pretty much like at his, turn it this way. I want to hit him at his waist, but the focus is going to be pushing on this leg. I'm stopping him, you know, with my trip leg. I'm stopping his ankle, stopping his leg, and then putting pressure here. Okay, so one common mistake in doing an inside trip is, you know, to the untrained eye, what you see is a trip, and you think that that you're going to topple them, like get in behind the foot and topple them from the top. And it's not that at all. What I'm going to do when I take my trip is to sag down, lower my level, and push from here. Back foot, push. Head on the same side of my trip, and push it down. Okay, so what I want you to do is just go in and put yourself on your knees, and you're going to be tripping, you know, whatever leg you're tripping with. By the way, what leg do you have to trip with? What leg do you need to trip with? I think it's up to you. The way that I handled this, you know, this was the leg I tripped with. I never tripped, very seldom, with this leg. Just felt better this way. I'm a right leg lead, so maybe that helps you out. You know, right leg versus a back leg. You know, your front leg versus a back leg. That could be why. Another good way to do it. You know, when you jump on a skateboard, you know, how do you jump on it? What's your lead leg? You know, and so maybe it's, you know, that kind of thing where you understand what's comfortable to you. So there's not a set. Just because I'm tripping with my right leg doesn't mean you have to. Okay. So down on your knees. and I'm gonna walk into my opponent and get into my trip. So my body is positioned against his body the way it needs to be to finish. Okay, because remember, I don't want to be up here and try to topple him. I'm not gonna trip him from up here. That's really rare. It happens sometimes, but it's rare. So, being down here, my leg in, and then back foot, I'm gonna push. And then notice my leg, high legs, all the way through. Okay, so you get in here, make sure that your head's not on the opposite side. It's gonna feel better, turn it this way. It's gonna feel better, it's not gonna feel awkward when your head's here. It may feel awkward when you're kinking your side and putting your head on the side that you're tripping. But that's what you have to do. Head goes on the trip side. So I push with my back foot and trail leg comes up right there. Okay? Just forward looking into him here, leg trip, toe up, push, and down. Okay, one thing that you want to do that's important with this, there are a lot of moving parts. Personally, I don't think this move is hard to do as far as, is it you have to use elbow grease to get it done? No, I think it's pretty simple. But the difficulty is in just the complex positions you need to put yourself in. So the next thing that I want to talk about is when I go into inside trip, or say if I'm doing inside trip from up here, okay, what I want you to notice is that my toe will never go in and stick itself into the mat, okay? Because if I do, he'll step out. Okay, it's super easy to deal with, okay? So what it should look like, here, I'm stepping in, toe up. So down on your knees, you'll want to practice this as well. Just kind of get the hang of this feel and get used to where your body is connecting with his body. Remember, I'm focusing on this leg, only this leg when I trip. I'm not trying to push through his whole body, okay? That's why my head's over here. So when I put this leg in, what I try to do is keep my toe up high and not touch it to the mat. So I'm going to push here and high leg. Going in, no touch, high leg. Okay, in addition, what's happening there, to keep my toe from touching, it'll help if you square up your hips, okay? So I'm gonna connect with him. When I take this trip, I'm gonna connect with him in a perpendicular manner. But when I get to him, my hips are gonna swivel to parallel to his hips, okay? So what I want you to notice is just watch what my hips are doing. Okay, from behind, it's this. Okay, so my hips are squaring up as I approach his hips. Okay, and then what that'll do is that'll help you keep your toe up. When you square your hips up, you can start leaning in. I go in sideways, square my hips up, and down. Okay, so again, last one. Just get comfortable right here. Be comfortable with your position with his body. Square your hips up, and high leg up. Okay, so let's tie this technique together with what we've covered so far. Remember, the first thing is you're under over, okay? And what's important with your head in this under over is that you're on your overhook side. Your head is on your overhook side, okay? And then the opposite side, it's an underhook, okay? So I'm under over in this position. The head is on the side you're gonna trip, okay? If you're changed over here, if it feels better over here, you have to change legs that you're tripping with, or change your ties, okay? So again, it's under on the head side, over on the head side, under on the far side. Over on the head side, under on the far side. Okay, now, so to get this trip, what's important is that, this leg right here, it could be back. It could be back. Okay, take it back, yeah. So I need to treat it. I need to get this thing to come to me. I'm not gonna go get it right now, it's too far away, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bite down on his arm, kind of hug his arm, turn my wrist down, hug it, and then pull him. I'm gonna just take a step back, okay? When I take a step back, I get him to move, okay? So I'm right here, we're in position, get him to move. What might help is a little bit of a kind of an outside, kind of a half man step outside so it can be directly back, or maybe it's over here, okay? So I'm pulling him to me, right here, pulling him to me. And one thing I want you to notice is that, and this is a common mistake that's made when you're tripping head side trip, is that you, when you go to move him, when you want him closer, because you definitely want him closer. You want his foot to be right where your trip foot is, or within range of it, okay? So one common mistake is that you go to set this guy and move his foot, treat his leg toward me, and you step back at the same time. So I don't want to do this, because it took my foot, my trip foot, away from the trip. Okay, it's called, what you can call it is staying at home. Keep your trip foot at home. Okay, it's grounded here, okay? Also, remember, maybe I'll back up a minute. This may feel more comfortable than this, but I need my trip foot to be in front. So you may be having conflicting motions at the hip. I'm tied up over here, but my hips are turned the opposite way. So I'm kind of like this, in this position, because this shoulder's a little more forward than my overhook shoulder, if that makes sense, okay? But I want to have this leg forward. This isn't going to help me. It's going to work against me, okay? So I lead that leg, and I pull down, little half man step, boom, get him to step, biting down. Okay, what I'm doing with his arm right here, just lean over like your stance, is I'm getting a hold of it, and I'm pulling it down to me to get him to step, okay? So I'm here, boom, step. Another thing that I'm doing is I'm kinking my side low. I'm treating my body like this. I'm coming down on his shoulders to bring his shoulders down. So I'm pulling here, bringing it down, okay? So I step, step. Okay, now from this point, I'm a little too far away with my back foot, but it's not a problem. You're just gonna take a cheat step in. Okay, a cheat step, maybe it is like you're throwing a ball. Okay, you got a ball like you're in baseball. How would you throw a ball? You cheat step forward, throw, okay? So it's kind of like that. You're in position, step in. And a good way of describing it is I've got my lead foot, my trip foot, that's going into trip. I'm gonna displace it with my back foot. Just try to put it where your front foot is. Try to put your back foot where your front foot is. And then you can step in. So I pull, boom, trip, like you're throwing a ball, okay? So, leg back, I'm gonna bite down, bend at the hips, keep my side, pull, he steps in, and then I'm gonna step into my front foot and go into my trip. And down. Okay, once again, here's legs back, keep my side, pull down, he steps, and drop. Okay, one thing that I want you to notice is, his legs back, that might be, it's common, but it doesn't have to be. Some dudes will just wrestle that forward. And maybe you don't have to set this up. Maybe it's there. Okay, you're in tight enough to, his legs up, his forward, or maybe he's pressuring you by taking steps. He's taking steps, right? And so his trip foot, the foot I'm tripping is there, okay? So maybe it's just a little step in and down. Okay, so that'll help too. You don't necessarily have to pull and set if it's already there. You have eyes, keep your eyes on it. What are his feet doing? And I think that's something, no matter what type of technique you're using, if it's an attack to the legs or a sweep or a trip, you want to be knowing what their feet are doing. So, keeping your eye on him, he's pushing, starting position. I step in with my back foot, displace it with my front foot, and down. Okay, the whole thing again. Turn sideways, we're here. Step in, pull, step in. Okay. Now, what am I doing with my hands, okay? So we'll talk a little bit about, what we want to do with our grips, okay? One, I bit down to move him down. I want to move him down, okay? So when I do that, a common reaction is for him to respond to that, react to it, and come back up. That's what I want. So I'm here, pull him down, get him to react up so he'll easily come up when I go in and trip. Okay? So that's one. And then the second thing, what do I do with my hands on the way down? I'm sagging down, changing levels. And so what I'm going to do when I step in is just stop short of just letting go, okay? So I'm going to step in, and my hands are going to pan out so it covers me from a roll. And it puts me in the middle of him. You'll know you're doing it right if your head, you're doing it right, level changing down, pushing through on the leg. If your head ends up like in the middle of his chest versus just staying ear to ear with the trip, okay? So I'm here, take a step in, down. The second trip that I'm gonna show you is a head on the opposite side of your trip leg, okay? So earlier we looked at head on the same side. I think this is the most common. I would say that it's hit more often. It's a little quicker. It takes less setup to get to. And you're just in a position already with your head to pursue the trip, okay? So opposite side head, what you're gonna do, you're still gonna be tripping over here, but one of the big issues with this is what I do with my head, okay? I'm gonna set this up and we'll talk about this in a minute, but when I go into this trip, just stand square for me. When I go into this trip, my leg's gonna be, my trip leg's gonna be on the side I'm tripping, but my head's over here, and so the big issue here is moving my head to the side that I'm tripping. So I'm here, what I've got to do with my body is step in, watch my head. Okay, just watch my head. I'm not really focused too much on toe being up, that kind of stuff. I just want you to notice that I'm moving my head to the side I'm tripping, okay? What it look like here, my head's here. I'm tripping, okay? So, in actuality, an inside trip, when you hit an inside trip, whether your head is on the same side or on the opposite side, you've got to still move your head to your trip side, okay? That's why the first technique we went over, the first trip we went over, that's why it's a little easier, because you don't have to move your head, okay? So when your head's on the opposite side, and personally, just from a personal standpoint, I actually like this opposite side trip better and actually hit it a lot more than hitting the trip with my head on the same side, because it seems to me it's a little more disguised. You know, it's not so obvious that I'm gonna attack that opposite side. Maybe his mind is what's going on over here, you know? And so this opposite side trip can be set up nicely. And if you set it up right, it just puts you in perfect position to get the trip done. Because you just pull him into your trip leg. So watch where, I'm here, I'm gonna take his lat. Remember on the opposite side, I'm underhook. I'm under on the opposite side always, okay? And my overhook is here on this side, okay? So when I go to set him up, I can pull him right into my trip leg. And I'm practically in the middle of him if I do it right, okay? So what I'm doing to make this happen is I'm just grabbing the lat. Grab the lat right here. And I'm doing two things. I'm stepping half man out, like from here, I'm stepping half man out, not necessarily back, I'm stepping half man this way, and I'm grabbing his lat, and I'm pulling it, okay? The second thing I'm doing that isn't so noticeable is that I'm pulling him down. So when I go around and I have a hold of his lat and I take a step out, I'm pulling him down and changing my levels down. And the reason is I want him to react up. I want him to feel me pulling this down, kind of like we did on the first technique where we bit his elbow here and pulled him down. Okay, same thing. I want him to feel that reaction down and to react to it by coming up. Okay, one cool thing about the sport of wrestling is, and it's hard to get away from, no matter what you're doing, is that you're always going to get a reaction out of what you're doing to your opponent, so if I'm just pushing Jack, he pushes me back, that's his reaction, okay? So pushing, and you get an opposite reaction, okay? If I take his head down, head's coming back up. If I pull him, not that I would, but if I pull him, there's a good chance he's gonna pull back. And this is a common thing, I pull a wrist, it goes back, he pulls it back to him. Okay, so in this case, this setup, to get a guy into position to trip him, a lot of it relies on pulling down as I step, moving my weight down and getting him to react up, okay? So the whole thing, we're here, pull down, hit, inside trip. Pulling down, inside trip, okay? One cool thing about this, when you pull the trip around your trip leg, when you pull his body around your trip leg, you oftentimes don't even have to take a cheat step in. You pull him around and you hit because he's close enough. So we're here, I pull him around, hit. We're here. Wrestle. So with this inside trip with your head on the opposite side, and you pull him around and you step, you pull down, you set. What's important here is when I step in is really to square my hips. Try to see if you can notice. I pulled him around to me and I'm turning my hips flush into him and moving my head to the opposite side. Okay, what you don't want to happen is to not leave your hips perpendicular to him and your head doesn't go over there. Okay, this is a recipe for disaster. Okay, I need to move this thing. Just watch my hips again. My hips are going in sideways. And then I square my hips up and move my head. Okay, there's one other tie-up or position that you can end up in or chase down and still get an inside trip. And that is from a double over, okay? Which is overhook, overhook, okay? And maybe this comes from, and we'll talk about this, but maybe this comes from a body lock that he has. And it's bringing me back and, kind of scaring me out of the position. And that's where inside trip is. Okay, another thing we'll talk about is when guys kind of shoots the leg, he comes up, and I end up in double over as he comes up and releases his single leg. So those are common positions. But let's look at the trip itself. Okay, so under over, what I want to do is the same side. A lot of times, and we'll talk about this, but when the move comes out, or when the tie up comes out of a dude shooting a shot and coming up, maybe he's moving into you, okay? But just in this case, he's not moving into you, and you've got to set this leg. You got to pull down and inside trip. And what I want to do here, I'm over on this side, is pretty much just letting go and sagging down with my head on the side. So my leg steps in, my leg steps in, inside trip. So maybe you got a deep one, a shallow one, okay? I'm wrestling here. I'm gonna let go of my arms, inside trip, down, and sag. And what's really important there is that when I'm in this position, I don't necessarily hang on to my double overs because it glues me to his chest. And what I need for my body to do is to relax as I'm tripping so I can sag down. Pushing. Okay. So over on this side, opposite side, okay, I'm stepping in and I'm just gonna release and sag down. Okay, one piece of this here is on your overhook side that you're tripping on, the side that you're tripping on. What am I doing with this hand? Maybe just collapse it down right into your opponent's arm. Okay. Okay, so getting into these trips. The first one, say your opponent, attacks you from the side, gets a bear hug, and so you're into a bear hug. So look at my position, okay? My immediate reaction, and it's normal, is to want to separate hips, okay? That's fine. Maybe your opponent pursues you, he pursues me, and there's gonna be your trip, okay? So I might not even have to step in with my back foot. I'm gonna do it just to demonstrate right here. He's approaching me, and I step in, watch this arm. Sagging down. Over here, under over. And again, what you don't want to do, one of the dangers in this is leaving yourself hanging on up top and getting into this position. And it's costly. I wouldn't say this is a terribly common position to take an inside trip, but it is there. In getting into a double over or ending up in a double over and getting your trip, this is where probably one of the most common areas is when a guy attacks a single leg on your lead leg and he hits here, okay? And so it's when you counter this move, doing the other one half side right here, he shoots single and I'm countering this move with an overhook, okay? And then as this comes up, he releases and comes up to my body. Then I can inside trip. Sagging down and away. Okay? So we're here, he shoots a single. I move away. It could happen just like this where he gets nothing. Okay, his hands aren't locked. I'm overhook here. As he comes up, I'm inside trip. Okay, from the other side. Okay, go slow. He hits a single. Okay, I'm here. Okay, so he's coming up and I'm going over, inside trip, throw my head, sag down. So real quick all together, he shoots a single, comes up, Okay, one of the benefits of learning an inside trip from an under over, I think this is the most common position, under over, and then double over if you're there. So one of the good benefits of just learning how to inside trip from under over is that there are other ties or other places to be able to hit it. One is when you are wrestling a collar tie. He's collar tied, okay? And we don't have this 2-on-1 position. We don't have the closeness with the chest. One thing about 2-on-1 is you can stay up close to his body, and you're not nearly as far away relative to his body versus him being in a collar or a inside tie collar, where you're more in this position here. Okay, those trips that we worked on, we were close. Overhook, underhook. Okay, so say you're dealing with a guy who wrestles into a collar, and you can take this off with a 2-on-1. I won't get too detailed with the 2-on-1, but a collar right here. What I want to do to get this, here's where I want to end up, and then we'll talk about it. I want to end up like this, up his arm. Not necessarily. There's space here. This is even, a little too far away. It's doable, but where I want to be is here. And so how do I get there? And it's not difficult, but it just takes a little instruction on it. So what I'm going to do is, one, I'm going to take this arm, throw it near the shoulder, and catch his bicep here. So I'm doing this, okay? And then I'm going to move into him. I think a common mistake in trying to take a 2-on-1 off your neck, or a collar tie off your neck to a 2-on-1, is that you move away from it, okay? It's not moving away from it, okay? I'm gonna move my arm up into here, because I'm gonna catch this arm, and then I'm gonna go get his bicep right here. So it's gonna be here. And then I move into him and take the 2-on-1. Now I have a high tie versus a distant tie. Okay, a close tie, here. So he's 2-on-1, or inside, or collar tie. I take it off, move into my opponent, and this is where I'm gonna find the trip. Okay, the most common reaction for my opponent, my partner here, is he's gonna circle away. He's gonna move himself away from the move, right, okay? And so where I'm gonna take the trip, on this opposite side, I have here, okay, I'm gonna trip to this leg, and I'm gonna take a big step in and take this arm across his chest. Stepping in. What it looks like on the other side is I take it off. Okay, so I'm taking a cheat step in, and I've gotta throw my head to the other side, noticing where my head is. I come in. It would actually be better if your head were over here on this side versus him being able to push away. You can still get to this, to a trip, but positioning your head up into him where it's lower and not push away on my face like this. So you have that position on him, and I cheat step in, inside trip. Here, bicep, move into him. He squares up, I trip down. Okay, the last position with an inside trip. Again, once you learn from the under over, I think that's where you start with this technique. Get comfortable with it, go through the mechanics, and once you start to feel it, you can find this trip in a couple other different areas. So the last one is, say, front headlock. My opponent shoots in on me, it's nothing, and I stop him. So where my hands are, I'm on the chin and shoulder, okay? Or I can be locked, so chin and shoulder, here, or I can be locked, okay? Where it's more a grip, this or, this doesn't matter, but I'm pinching to keep his head underneath my chest, okay? One thing before we take this further an important piece of this. I can't neglect this situation, you know, because I want to make sure that this doesn't happen. I can't let his head come up and poke out underneath in my armpit because he can come into me now. Yeah, okay? So in a front headlock, just a little bit of front headlock fundamentals is when he shoots on me, come back, brother. When he shoots on me, and I stop him, I keep my elbow to my side, okay? I can't come up and be wide because he'll duck me, okay? So that's one. Now, and what's common here? Dudes will come to their feet, okay? So he comes up to his feet, and we're in an inside trip position now. Now, what I want to do, I want to take his body and circle it to where he steps into my trip. I'm a right leg trip, and so I'm going to circle his body to where he takes a step with his left leg. Okay, my right side. Okay, so I'm here. We come up. I'll step around, and then inside trip. For the first one, I'm going to show you just letting go or pushing his body back. And then the second one, I'll show where you keep his head and pinch him to like a stack, okay? So right here, what I'm doing is I pulled him around, I take a step in to trip, and I'm going to throw his head through. So I'm here, I'm moving it, taking a step in, back, okay? What I'm doing with the head is I move it, and then as I'm going into trip, I'm moving it over, and then taking my arm just all the way through. Catching a trip. So, right here, moving it all the way through. Regular speed. We're in a position here, he's up, move around, inside trip. Okay? And so then the next, we're in a front headlock, so he shoots. We're in front headlock. I move him. And then what I'm going to do here is pinch and trip and keep his head. Boom. Down. Into, well, hopefully a stack. Maybe you come out, let go of the trip. Here. Move him. Trip to his back.